The day my daughter got married, I was sitting at home, folding laundry that didn't need folding. My hands were busy, but my heart was not. It felt heavy, like it already knew something was wrong. I checked my phone again. No message, no missed call, no wedding photo. Nothing. I had imagined this day for years. I imagined fixing her dress. I imagined holding her hands while she cried from happiness. I imagined standing quietly at the back of the hall, just watching her smile. Instead, I was standing alone in my kitchen. The kettle had gone cold, the house was too quiet. That morning, she sent one short message, just one line. "Please don't come, we want something small." No explanation, no discussion, just that. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't cry, I didn't reply. I just sat down slowly like my legs had forgotten how to hold me. My husband asked, "Is everything okay?" I nodded. That was easier than speaking. But inside, something broke. Not loudly, not all at once. It broke the way trust breaks. Quiet, deep, permanent, hours passed. I kept telling myself this was her choice, that parents must learn to step back, that love means letting go. But every clock tick sounded louder than the last. Every minute felt like a reminder that I was not wanted on the most important day of her life. And then, late in the afternoon, my phone rang. I expected a photo, a soft apology, a happy voice. Instead, I heard silence on the other end, heavy silence. Then a voice I didn't recognize said, "There's been a problem." In that moment, my heart stopped pretending. It knew our daughter didn't let us come to her wedding, but her big day didn't end the way she planned. And what happened next changed our family forever. Before everything fell apart, our life looked quiet from the outside, not perfect, but steady. My husband and I were never rich people. We worked. We saved. We raised our daughter with love, patience, and the kind of care that does not make noise. Our home was small, but it was warm. The kind of place where shoes stayed by the door and laughter stayed in the walls. I cooked every evening, even when I was tired. Not because I had to, but because it felt like love. Our daughter, Lily, was our only child. From the moment she learned to walk, she carried a quiet strength in her steps. She was not loud, not demanding, but she watched everything. As a child, she liked to sit beside me in the kitchen. She would play with spoons while I cooked. Sometimes she would look up and ask questions that felt too deep for her age. "Mom, do people ever stop loving each other?" I would smile and tell her no. Because that was what I believed at the time. We were not strict parents, but we believed in values. Respect, honesty, family. When Lily grew older, she became independent very fast. She wanted to do things on her own, choose her own path. Make her own mistakes. I respected that. I told myself that giving her space was also love. When she left for college, the house became quieter than I expected. Her room stayed the same for years. Same curtains, same books, same photo of her at 16, smiling with that hopeful look in her eyes. She called often in the beginning, every few days, then every week. Then sometimes once a month. I noticed the change, but I did not question it. I told myself this was normal. Children grow up. They get busy. Then she met him. She told us about him on a short phone call. Her voice sounded different, excited but careful. "He's nice," she said. "He understands me." That was all she said at first. When we finally met him, he was polite. Quiet, very controlled. He smiled at the right moments, said the right words. But something about him felt distant, not rude, just closed. I pushed that feeling aside, because as a mother, you want to believe your child is safe. As the years passed, Lily visited less. Holidays became shorter. Phone calls became brief. When I asked how she was doing, she would say, "I'm fine, Mom." Always fine. Then one day, she told us she was engaged. Not in person, over the phone. There was no excitement in her voice, just information. "We're planning something small," she said. I asked if we could help, if she wanted anything, if she had a date. She paused before answering. "We're still figuring things out." From that moment on, something shifted. We were no longer included in the details of her life. I would hear about plans after they were already decided. I would learn important things through short messages, never through conversations. When I tried to ask questions, she would gently shut them down. "Mom, please don't worry. Mom, it's under control." I told myself not to push, not to become that mother who interferes. But inside, I felt a quiet ache. Like standing outside your own home, holding the key, but unsure if you are welcome inside anymore. I noticed my husband felt it too. He became quieter. He stopped asking about her wedding plans altogether. One night, while we sat at the dinner table, he said softly, "I think we are losing her." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that parents don't lose children, but the truth was already sitting between us. The invitations never came. No dress shopping. No phone calls about venues. No discussions about dates. When I finally asked directly if we would be there, Lily's voice changed. It became distant, firm. "We decided to keep it private," she said. That word stayed with me. Private. I did not cry. I did not argue. I told her I understood. But after the call ended, I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, holding the phone, listening to the silence. I wondered when family stopped meaning together, and when private started meaning without you. That was when I realized this was not just about a wedding. It was about distance that had been growing quietly for years, and we had been too gentle to notice how far apart we had drifted. I started to notice the distance before anyone ever said the words out loud. It did not arrive all at once. It came softly, like a door closing without a sound. My daughter used to call me every Sunday afternoon, not for long conversations, just small ones. She would ask how my knees were feeling, whether I had eaten, whether the roses in the yard were still blooming. Then the calls became shorter. Then they came later. Then some Sundays passed with no call at all. At first, I told myself she was busy. She had work. She had a life. She had love. I remembered how I was when I was young, always rushing, always tired, always thinking there would be time later. So I stayed quiet. When I did call her, she sounded distracted. Not cold, just far away. "Yes, Mom. MMHMM. I'll call you back." Sometimes she did. Sometimes she didn't. I began to feel like I was standing outside a room I once belonged to, listening through a wall that was slowly getting thicker. Her fiancé's name came up more often than her own thoughts. What he wanted, what he planned, what his family expected. I listened carefully, not to judge, just to understand, but something in her voice had changed. It was softer, almost guarded. I asked once very gently, "Are you happy?" She paused before answering, just a second, but I heard it. "Yes, Mom," she said, and the word yes felt practiced. That night I lay awake longer than usual. The house was quiet, too quiet. I walked into the spare bedroom where I kept old photo albums. Pictures of her as a child, missing teeth, messy hair, her hand always reaching for mine. I remembered the promise I made when she was born. That no matter how far life took her, she would always know where home was. I wondered if she still felt that way. The wedding plans started appearing in pieces, a mention here, a detail there. She told me the colors they were thinking about, then changed them. She mentioned a location, then said they were still deciding. I offered help once, just once. "If you need anything," I said, "I'm here." There was another pause. "We've got it handled," she replied, her voice polite, careful. After that, I stayed in my place. But staying quiet does not stop a mother from noticing. It only makes her notice more. Her future in-laws were always mentioned by name. Their opinions, their plans, their excitement. Mine were not. I began to feel like a guest in a story I helped begin. One afternoon, I asked about the date again. I tried to sound casual, light. "So, when is the wedding, sweetheart?" She laughed softly, not unkindly, just briefly. "We'll let you know." Those words stayed with me longer than they should have. "We'll let you know," not "you'll be there." Not "we can't wait to see you." Just "we'll let you know." I told myself not to read into it, that people speak without meaning sometimes. But my heart did not listen to reason. It listened to tone and silence. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The closer we got to what I assumed would be the wedding, the less I heard. I sent a message once, just a heart emoji. She replied hours later with one back. It felt like a closed circle, complete and empty. Then came the phone call that changed the air in my chest. She called unexpectedly, her voice calm, too calm. "Mom," she said, "I just wanted to check in." My heart lifted for a moment, just enough to hurt when it fell. We talked about the weather, about work, about nothing important. Then I asked again, softly, carefully, "So, how are the wedding plans going?" There was a longer pause this time. I could hear her breathing. "We're keeping it small," she said. Small. That word landed like a quiet excuse. "I understand," I replied, and I meant it, but understanding does not erase longing. After the call ended, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the same table where she once did homework, the same table where we shared late-night talks. I noticed the empty chair across from me. I noticed how long it had been empty. Something inside me whispered that I was being slowly prepared for an absence. That this distance was not an accident, it was a direction. I did not sleep much that night. I kept replaying conversations, searching for mistakes, moments where I might have said too much or too little. I wondered if love could become invisible without leaving. The next morning, I made tea and stood by the window. The world outside was moving as usual, cars passing, birds settling on wires. Life does not pause when hearts feel uncertain. I told myself one thing, just one. No matter what happens, I will stay calm. I will stay kind. I will stay present. Even if I am not invited, even if I am not included, because being a mother does not end when doors close. It just learns how to wait quietly outside them. And somewhere deep inside, I still believed there would be a knock. The turning point did not come with a loud argument. It came quietly, like most things that truly change your life. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I found out the truth. The kind of afternoon that feels ordinary until it never does again. The sky was pale. The house was still. I was folding laundry at the dining table, moving slowly the way I had learned to do since my heart started feeling tired all the time. I remember holding one of her childhood dresses. Yellow, small. I had kept it all these years. I don't know why. Maybe because some part of me believed she would one day come back and ask for it. That's when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't pick it up. These days, I had learned not to expect much, but something in my chest tightened, the way it does before bad news. So I answered. It was my sister. She didn't say hello right away. She just sighed, and in that sigh, I knew something was wrong. She got married, she said softly. I didn't understand at first. Who? I asked, even though I already knew. Our daughter, she said. She got married last weekend. The room went quiet, so quiet I could hear my own breathing. I felt the edge of the table under my fingers grounding me, keeping me from falling. Are you sure? I asked. My voice sounded calm even to me. Yes, she said. I saw the pictures. Pictures. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I didn't scream. I didn't ask why. I just sat there. While she talked, her words floated past me like leaves on water. Small ceremony, close friends, her husband's family, a white dress, smiles, no parents. When the call ended, I stayed exactly where I was. The dress still in my hands, the phone resting face down on the table. I thought of all the moments I had imagined, helping her choose flowers, straightening her veil, holding her hands when she got nervous. I thought of how many times I had defended her, how many nights I stayed awake worrying about her future, how many sacrifices I had made quietly without ever telling her. And now I was a stranger. That night I didn't tell my husband right away, not because I wanted to hide it, but because I didn't know how to say it without breaking something inside him too. When I finally did tell him, he listened without interrupting. He nodded slowly. Then he said, maybe she'll explain. That word stayed with me. Explain. The next day I called her. She didn't answer. I sent a message, just one line. I heard, I hope you're happy. Hours passed. Then a reply came. We wanted something simple. That was all. No apology, no explanation, no mention of us. That's when something shifted inside me. Not anger, something quieter. Clarity. I realized I had been waiting for her to see me, waiting for her to understand, waiting for a moment that might never come. I realized how small I had made myself just to stay close, how many times I had swallowed my feelings so I wouldn't seem demanding, how often I told myself, she's busy, or she'll come around. And I understood something painful. She didn't forget us. She chose a life where we were not included. That truth hurt, but it also freed me. A few days later, an envelope arrived in the mail, her handwriting. Inside was a wedding announcement card, smiling faces, a date already passed, no note. I sat by the window holding that card for a long time. The light was soft. The street outside was quiet. I thought about what kind of mother I wanted to be now, one who chased, or one who stood with dignity. That evening, I did something I never thought I would do. I packed away her childhood things, not to punish her, not out of anger, but to release myself from living in the past. Each item I placed in a box felt like a goodbye to a version of motherhood I had held onto too tightly. I didn't stop loving her. I just stopped begging to belong. When my husband saw the boxes, he asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded. And for the first time in a long while, it wasn't a lie. The turning point wasn't the wedding. It was the moment I chose myself, not over her, but alongside my own heart. That night I slept deeply, not because the pain was gone, but because I finally accepted the truth. Some doors close without warning. And sometimes the strength is not in knocking again. It's in turning around. After the wedding day passed, the house felt different, not louder, not emptier in a clear way, just heavier. The rooms were the same, but the air carried something I could not name. Every sound felt slow, the clock ticking on the wall, the kettle boiling, my own footsteps moving from room to room. I kept thinking I would wake up and realize it was all a misunderstanding, that my daughter would call and laugh and say, "Mom, of course you were invited." But the phone stayed silent. I tried not to replay the pictures in my mind, her dress, her smile, the people standing where I should have been. But my thoughts did not listen to me. I told myself to stay calm. I told myself I was strong. I told myself I had lived long enough to understand that children make choices we do not control. Still, at night, the pain spoke louder. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I remembered holding her for the first time, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine, the promise I made to always be there. And now, somehow, I had not been there at the most important moment of her life. The next morning, I made tea and sat at the kitchen table. The same table where she once did homework, where we shared stories, where I kissed her forehead before school. I held the warm cup in my hands and asked myself a quiet question. Not why she did this, but what I would do next. I could call her and demand answers. I could cry and tell her how much she hurt me. I could remind her of everything I gave. But something inside me said to wait, so I waited. Days passed, then a week, then 2. People around me tried to comfort me. Some said she was wrong, some said weddings are stressful, some said I should let it go. None of those words reached my heart. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Her handwriting was careful, slow. I did not open it right away. I placed it on the table and looked at it for a long time. I was afraid of what it might say, and afraid of what it might not say. When I finally opened it, my hands were shaking. She wrote that she loved me. She wrote that the wedding became complicated. She wrote that she did not know how to handle everything. She did not say sorry, not clearly, not the way a mother hopes to read. I read the letter again and again, trying to find warmth between the lines. I realized something painful then. She was not trying to hurt me. She was trying to protect her own peace, and I was the cost. That truth sat heavy in my chest. I cried that night, not loud, not angry, just quiet tears that soaked into my pillow. In the morning, I wiped my face and looked in the mirror. I saw a woman who had loved deeply, a woman who had given without keeping score. I asked myself another question. Would I let this moment turn my love into bitterness? The answer came slowly. No, I did not excuse her choice, but I chose not to let it poison my heart. I wrote her back, short words, gentle words. I love you. I hope your life is filled with peace. My door is always open. When I mailed that letter, I felt something lift, not the pain, but the weight of holding it alone. Weeks later, she finally called. Her voice was soft. Careful, she said, Mom, I didn't know how to face you. I did not interrupt. I let the silence do its work. Then I said, I'm here. That was all. We did not fix everything in one call. We did not rewrite the past, but we opened a small door. And sometimes, healing does not arrive with celebration. It arrives quietly. Like a breath you didn't know you were holding. I learned that love does not always look the way we expect. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it steps back. But when it stays gentle, even after pain, it remains love. And that was my choice. I used to think acceptance came all at once, like a door opening, like a sudden feeling of peace. But that is not how it came to me. Acceptance came slowly, in small, quiet moments. Moments that no one else saw. After the wedding day passed, the house felt different. Not empty, just still. The chairs were in the same place. The curtains moved gently with the air. The clock on the wall kept ticking, steady and patient. Life had not stopped, only something inside me had gone quiet. For days, I kept expecting my phone to ring. I would hear a sound and reach for it without thinking, but it was never her. I realized then that hope can be the heaviest thing to carry. One morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea. It had gone cold, but I didn't notice. I was watching the sunlight fall across the floor, and for the first time, I did not feel angry. I did not feel betrayed. I only felt tired. That was the moment acceptance first touched me, not like forgiveness, not like happiness, but like a deep breath after holding my lungs too tight for too long. I began to understand something I had never allowed myself to see. My daughter did not stop loving me. She simply chose a life where I was no longer at the center. And that truth hurt. But it was also honest. I stopped replaying the wedding in my mind, stopped imagining who sat where, stopped wondering if she looked for me in the crowd. Those questions did not change anything. They only kept me tied to a day that was already gone. Instead, I started noticing the days I still had. I cleaned the house slowly, not because it was dirty, but because movement helped my thoughts settle. I folded clothes with care, watered the plants by the window, listened to the radio in the evenings. These were small things, but they reminded me I was still here. There is strength in continuing, quiet strength, the kind no one applauds. One afternoon, I found an old photo of my daughter as a child. She was missing a front tooth and smiling wide. I held it for a long time. I did not cry. I smiled, because love does not disappear just because it changes shape. I realized then that I did not need an apology to move forward. I did not need an invitation to feel whole. I did not need her permission to live my life with dignity. That understanding settled into me gently. I began waking up earlier, walking in the mornings, feeling the air on my face. There is healing in routine, in choosing yourself again. Some nights were still heavy. Some memories still came uninvited, but they no longer broke me. They passed through me, like clouds, not storms. I learned that acceptance is not agreement. It is simply letting go of the fight. And letting go gave me something I had not felt in a long time. Peace. I remember sitting in the living room that evening, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the background, and the soft ticking of the wall clock. It felt like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for me to decide what to do next. I had spent days, maybe weeks, circling the same thoughts in my mind. The anger, the hurt, the sense of betrayal, all of it had settled into a heavy weight on my chest. But as I sat there, I realized something profound. I couldn't change what had happened. My daughter had made her choices, and my son had his own path. My energy could either drain into resentment, or I could redirect it into something that restored my sense of self. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. In that quiet moment, I felt a strange relief. Acceptance wasn't about approving what had been done. It wasn't about pretending the hurt didn't exist. No, acceptance was about freeing myself from the chains of someone else's decisions. I could not control their actions, but I could control how I responded. That realization felt like the first gentle sunlight breaking through a long winter night. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen, sunlight spilling across the floor. I poured myself a cup of tea, savoring the warmth in my hands. Small routines suddenly felt grounding. The smell of the tea, the quiet chirping of birds outside, the soft creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet. It reminded me that life continued, even when it felt like it had stopped. There was beauty in these small things, in the ordinary, and it was mine to hold on to. I began reconnecting with old habits that I had neglected, reading books that had once brought me joy, tending to the garden I had almost forgotten, and even calling old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Each act, though small, was a quiet declaration of life. Each step reminded me that I had the right to happiness, even if it didn't come in the way I had once imagined. I also spent time reflecting on my relationship with my children. There was sadness, yes, but also understanding. I realized that love does not always look the way we hope it will. My daughter had her reasons, whether I agreed with them or not, and my son had his own struggles. Holding on to judgment only kept me in pain. Letting go of that judgment opened space for compassion, first for them, then for myself. I began journaling every evening. Words poured out like a river long dammed, revealing my fears, my regrets, my hopes. Writing became a form of release, a conversation with my own heart. I didn't censor my feelings, and I didn't seek validation. The journal was mine alone. Through this practice, I noticed a transformation. The sharp edges of my hurt softened, replaced by a quiet strength I had forgotten I possessed. Friends began noticing a change, too. They would call, asking if I wanted to meet for tea or a walk. I found that I was no longer declining invitations out of bitterness or fear. Instead, I welcomed human connection, small moments that reminded me that I was still part of the world. Each smile shared, each laugh remembered, each shared silence reminded me of life's simple beauty. One afternoon, I stood by the window and watched my neighbor's children play in the yard. Their laughter was a balm to the lingering ache inside me. I realized that joy is never about grand gestures. It is found in the ordinary, in the fleeting moments that fill the spaces of our lives. I understood, finally, that my life was not diminished by their choices. My life was mine, still full of meaning, still capable of love, and still deserving of care. In embracing acceptance, I also discovered forgiveness. Not in the sense of excusing the actions that caused pain, but in releasing their hold over me. Forgiveness became a quiet, unspoken act of liberation. It allowed me to move forward without dragging the weight of resentment. I forgave my children in my own heart, acknowledging their humanity, their flaws, and their paths, even if they diverged from mine. And in doing so, I forgave myself for carrying hurt so long. As weeks turned into months, I began to embrace life differently. I noticed the details I had overlooked: the smell of fresh bread baking, the way sunlight danced on the curtains, the rhythm of a calm morning. I spent more time with neighbors, volunteering in small ways, sharing stories, and listening to theirs. In giving, I found healing. In connection, I found solace. Even in quiet moments of solitude, I felt a deep peace settle within me. I could sit on the porch, tea in hand, and watch the world continue without me having to control it. I understood that strength was not in confrontation or resentment. It was in the gentle, steady assertion of my own dignity, in the preservation of my heart amidst disappointment. And so, I learned to live with grace. Not the kind of grace that demands applause or recognition, but the quiet, unwavering grace that comes from knowing one's own worth. Each day became an opportunity to nurture myself, to heal, and to honor the love I still held for my family, even if it was from a distance. In this acceptance, I found a new rhythm. Life, I realized, is not always about getting the outcomes we expect. It's about learning to dance with what is given, to find beauty in imperfection, and to hold on to hope when the world seems uncertain. I discovered that my strength was not defined by what I could control, but by how gracefully I could embrace what I could not. And as the sun set each evening, casting warm hues across the walls, I felt a gentle sense of completeness. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had found a sanctuary within myself, a place untouched by betrayal, untouched by disappointment. A place of quiet strength where love, acceptance, and resilience intertwined. It was in this space, finally, that I could breathe.